It's time for the Brian Roos Show on June the 6th, 2019. My guest is Simon Roche from the Statelanders. He's in South Africa. I'm in Vancouver, Canada. He was just on 3 days ago, but we're going to have further updates, Simon. So tell us what's new.
Oh, Brian, there's a fair amount going on in South Africa. There are a tremendous number of farm attacks at the moment. People are being attacked left, right, and center. One teenage girl was raped on her farm. A woman was raped on another farm. I think there have been 4 actual murders in the attacks in the past few weeks. People are getting quite panicky, Brian. It's interesting to see how many people who have hitherto been quite complacent about I suppose the traumas of the new South Africa are now really worried. I think I mentioned to you last time that there is a 700% year-on-year increase in the number of applications for visas to Australia. So the Liberals are starting to panic, Brian.
Yeah, the Liberals are fleeing the Rainbow Nation.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, yeah. But as you know, the last time that we spoke about, I think 4, 5, or 6 prophecies of Sina van Rensburg. By the end, I said to you that there were another 4 or so that we could address next time, which is now. Yeah. So I'll just jump in if that's okay.
Yeah, this is what really interests me in the audience. Yeah, I get a lot of ratings on these predictions.
Okay, well, just as a reminder to those people who may have forgotten and to those who didn't know in the first place, the Afrikaner Boer folk of South Africa, which is about 60% of the whites, and the whites form about 8% of the entire population, about 1 in 12 people. In other words, the Afrikaner Boers are something like 1 in 23 people in South Africa. Had a prophet who lived from 1862 to 1926, and from a very young age, he was deemed to have some sort of, let's say, superhuman powers of clairvoyance, for want of a better word. And he made many prophecies in the name of God about the future. And he gained a special credibility during the Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902, where he provided much advice to the Boer commanders fighting the British. And then during the First World War, he was a group of people that rebelled against South Africa, which had been conquered by the British and had become a British colony, part of the British Empire. He and his friends rebelled against South Africa being compelled into World War I on the side of the British. And these guys put up a rebellion for about a year. And during that time, he also made many wonderful predictions that gave him tremendous credibility. Then towards the end of his life, he made prophecies about a black government in South Africa, which cost him his credibility.
Yeah, who'd want to hear that?
People never imagined that there was any possibility of black self-rule anywhere in Africa. And so he was laughed out of hand. However, towards 1994, when South Africa's first multiracial elections took place, once people saw the writing on the wall and that there was going to be a black government, people regained their interest in his prophecies. He became very popular again, something which, by the way, he foretold. And people discovered that he'd said that not only would there be a black government, but that the first black ruler on the throne of South Africa would be deemed a saint by the world.
Oh, Nelson Mandela. He was not a saint.
Yeah, Yeah, no, he
No.
wasn't a saint by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, with that in mind, I'll tell you some of the prophecies that we spoke about last time, or the other prophecies similar to the ones that we spoke about last time.
Yeah.
And you'll remember, Brian, that when we spoke last time, we were speaking somewhat in the context of a third world war. Many of the prophecies that you and I discussed last time were prophecies that Sina van Rensburg gave as milestones or route markers for a third world war. He had long before prophesied that there would be 3 world wars. And he very interestingly said that the Second World War would be dominated by a great German stone that would roll first one way across Europe, then the other way across Europe, then back to its starting point, then it would break in 2. And there would be two Germanys.
Wow, he got it right. I'm just wondering, does it ever go beyond World War III to World War IV and beyond that, or is it is the end of it?
No, he said 3 world wars. And I told you last time, we needn't go through all of that again about what he said would be these milestones. And I'm going to give you some others tonight, Brian. He said, there's something else I should mention in setting the scene, as I've been doing for the past couple of minutes. He said that there would be a civil war in South Africa which would run in parallel with, or in parallel to, this Third World War. He said that the Third World War would begin shortly before South Africa's terrible last war, and he said that it would end slightly after. So World War III begins, South Africa's final struggle begins, South Africa's final struggle ends, and then World War III ends.
And then all these Germans come down to Southern Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We would be the last in and the first out, he said. So my organization, Saitlanders, when I say my, the organization that I represent, not own. I'm not the leader. I'm just the speaker, spokesman, if you like. Our leader is Mr. Gustav Müller, founder and leader, a very, very morally strong man. He has great.
Yeah, he's been on my show before too. Yeah.
So he said that at this time of the massive flood, of the sudden wave of black and brown skin migrants into Europe, he said that the Afrikaner boervolk would lose everything. Alles, maar alles verloor. Will lose everything but everything. Now, of course, people have believed that they've seen this coming true before their very eyes, as we've witnessed hundreds of thousands of whites get sucked into squatter camps, poor white squatter camps in South Africa.
Yeah, a lot of poverty there.
Yeah, people have also recognized this prophecy in the BBBEE laws that we have, broad-based black economic empowerment, affirmative action to you and me, Brian, which have shut whites out of much of South Africa's economy. And thirdly, people believe that they are seeing this come true as the government gradually implements its policy, or works toward implementing a policy of expropriating white-owned land without compensation. EWC, expropriation without compensation. So time will tell, but it does certainly look as if the road is getting rougher and rockier for white people in this country, apart from the privileged few.
Yeah.
Those who are happy to work with global enterprises, for example. Who knows whether we will lose everything, but that was the prophecy. It certainly looks as if it's being fulfilled. Another prophecy that he gave concerning this time that you and I spoke about, this time prior to a World War III, the time in which the how can I put it, the time of the black and brown-skinned migrants into Europe, he said that there would be a sudden rise of Islam and jihad. He called it Mohammedanism.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
So
the religion of
true.
Muhammad
So true.
and jihad, holy war by the Mohammedans. Can you believe that, Brian? Is that not a remarkable achievement to be
Spot
able
on.
to predict something like that?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
Mm.
So many of it, like
So-
400 of his predictions were correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And another one that you may find interesting is that he said that at this time, one of his friends spoke to him about different countries in the world and what roles they would play and so on. And the subject of Japan came up. And his friend said to him, what about Japan? Japan's a vibrant, vigorous, virile, if you like, country. Small, but, you know, they're strong. What are they going to do? And he said, my friend, Japan will be nothing because she will be wiped out by earthquakes.
Oh, earthquakes. Wow.
Yeah, so we certainly can't say that Japan has been wiped out by earthquakes, but what we have learned scientifically in the past century, I suppose, is that Japan will always be vulnerable to earthquakes, especially the modern Japan, which depends upon modern rigid structures. The more bridges, roads, hospitals, refineries, power stations, and mines that you have built of iron or steel and concrete, the more vulnerable you are to shaking and shuddering.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the nature of the thing. The more skyscrapers you have, the more you have to fall down, to collapse. And then, Brian, the last one, this is going to be a very short video. The last one that I have for you tonight is he spoke about a massive depression, especially in the UK, a depression that would affect the world, but which would do untold damage to the United Kingdom. He said that the value of the pound would be less than the paper with which it is printed.
Wow.
And the reason I find that interesting, Brian, is I have in recent months become quite fascinated by the threat of a global financial collapse, the collapse of fiat currencies and so on.
I'm concerned about
the
it.
role of reserve banks, for example, the Federal Reserve in the USA. And there are many very serious people. For example, one random example is Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the noted author and, well, genius, really. These are not wacky folks from the Twilight Zone. They're not from the periphery of society.
Or economics.
They are people, they are profound thinkers. And nowadays, if you go on the internet and you search for, this kind of material, you find that there is an increasing number of very sober-minded people giving well-substantiated, reasonable, intelligent arguments for the necessary, the inevitable, the ineluctable, the unavoidable collapse of the modern financial system. And so who knows what's going to happen? Only God knows. But we certainly have somebody who is a crutch for our thinking. You know, as frail human beings, when we find it difficult to understand the world around us, and when we find it impossible to foresee what's going to happen in the world, especially in these uncertain times, it's wonderful to be able to turn to somebody who has a proven track record of predicting things that would happen and allowing yourself
Yeah.
to, allowing your mind to be opened. And I don't say that we should all panic, become hysterical or neurotic. I do say that there's no harm in being prudent. Forewarned is forearmed. Forewarned is forearmed. We have been forewarned.
Yeah, so maybe with the
somebody-
currency, maybe it's good to get out of currency, invest in something else that's not just fiat currency.
We would say so.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would certainly say so. We would even go so far as to say avoid all stocks and all bonds. Avoid equities markets, avoid the whole lot. Look towards silver and gold.
That's just what I was going to say too. Yeah.
Yeah, look to commodities that you can easily trade. I'm going to give you a random example. It may not be the best example, but if there was a financial collapse, and if the cost of goods and services became prohibitive, and if the supply of those goods and services became very much restricted, if the producers of those goods and services were collapsing left, right, and center, going out of business, going bankrupt, and for example, people couldn't very easily get fuel for their cars, and you were the man who had 10,000 liters of dieseline stockpiled, well, you would be sitting pretty. You would be in a very healthy position. And that is the sort of advice that we give our Saatlanders members. You know, Saatlanders as an organization has only one purpose, and that is to prepare a national emergency plan to safeguard the welfare of our people, white South Africans, in the event of a civil war. And so we're effectively a prepper organization to some extent. And with that in mind, this is the sort of advice that we give our members. We tell them, prepare, stock up on this, stock up on the other, stock up on that. And if you can, have a substitute for money, have a substitute for checks, have a substitute for credit cards and debit cards, have tangible items of tangible value, whether it be silver or gold or diesel fuel or anything else that might be of value in a time of crisis, such as antibiotics is a classic example.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, it's good warning. I think I'll pass this on to people. It's good warning. So did he give us any other predictions beyond that?
Oh, Brian, he gave scores and scores. I'm struggling to think of ones offhand that I haven't mentioned to you before.
Well, I'm thinking like you mentioned, like when the Germans dominate Southern Africa, is that sort of where his predictions end in the future? The Germans will be in Southern, does not go beyond that future?
Well, I'm going to give you a slightly long-winded answer. What he said was that I beg your pardon, the World War III would be instigated by Turkey. It would be begun, so it would be instigated by Turkey, it would be goaded by Turkey, but Russia would be the protagonist. Russia would invade Turkey. In one night, it would cross from one border to the sea. Russia would then proceed beyond Turkey into southeastern Europe. I presume, I don't know, but I presume that he was referring to the region of Greece, the Balkans, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and then on to Europe, and all the way to Spain. He said that Great Britain and America would be allies, but that Great Britain would betray America to Russia, betray the USA. The USA would then abandon Great Britain, write her off, and Great Britain would then be destroyed by the Russians. He then said that the Spanish would put up an incredible fight preventing the Russians coming in. And while they were doing that, the Germans would come from behind the Russians, attack them from the rear, and knock them out, and the USA would come again from the front. And that World War III would end up with the northern hemisphere uninhabitable, completely destroyed, that Russia would be wiped away, utterly destroyed.
Does that mean like the whole northern hemisphere? Does that mean like China as well? Like China's in the northern hemisphere. What about that?
Well, he said the north would be absolutely destroyed, laid waste. Whether it's every country or not, I couldn't tell you. Whether it's from a certain degree of latitude up to us, I don't know. But he said that the north would be laid waste. He then said that, well, I think I've said it already, that Russia would be wiped out, that Great Britain would be completely destroyed, and that the USA would become a klein onbenullige landjie, a small, insignificant little land, a small, insignificant little country, a klein onbenullige landjie. He said that the Germans would then re-establish German civilization in Southern Africa, in Namibia, the former German Southwest Africa. And he said that once this World War III had been settled, he saw the nations of the world sitting at a table. And that at the head of the table was Germany, the most powerful nation in the world, and that South Africa would be the most blessed nation, the most richly blessed, not the most powerful, not the biggest, not the fancy schmanciest, but greatly blessed.
I guess the Germans would be there in South Africa, right? It would be German, right?
Well,
mixture,
yes.
Boer and German, right? There'd be allies, right?
Yeah, in Namibia. And he said that he saw that the USA sat right towards the end of the table in a very, very junior position. And he said that the chair of Great Britain was unoccupied.
What does he say about Israel? Do you know? Of course, Israel never existed in his time. There was no Israel when he died in 1926.
No, I've never come across any prophecy specifically referring to Israel or Zion or Palestine or you name it. He said, there was another thing I wanted to mention to you. Oh, he said that in fact it would be Germany that would rescue South Africa, or let's say my people, the whites of South Africa, in a civil war. He said that the Germans would come south from Germany during this World War III, during our own civil war, and assist us very greatly.
Wow, so they'll save the Boer, save the South African whites.
Yes, correct.
Great, wow.
Yeah. So that's it, Brian. I think that's about as much as I have to tell you off the top of my head this evening.
Yeah, well, that's great. I appreciate the update. So you really make me think about the collapsing currencies coming up, because people have been saying that for a long time about the American dollar, like how long can it hang on, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think that this kind of false value cannot last forever.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your talk, Simon. We'll be in touch again soon. Thank you kindly. And I just wanted to ask the viewer to donate to the Statelanders. There's a link below this video if you want to support the Statelanders. You're in the fight for your lives there, and it looks like it's getting worse, you know.
Please, Brian, we are boxing way above our weight here in little old South Africa, a very small population of white people. We're talking all over the world. I'm going back to Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks' time. I'm giving a speech in Tennessee. I gave 2 or 3 speeches in Tennessee last year. I'll give 2 speeches in Tennessee again this year. I gave a speech to the European Parliament a couple of months ago. And all of this is only possible made possible by the donations that we receive from people from wealthier countries with stronger economies, with stronger currencies. We're beggars, and we take no pride in that. We're not a nation or a race of beggars. We don't like having to ask other people to fund us. But our simple reality is that we are an embattled minority in one of the most politically correct countries in the world, and we have been boxing far above our weight for this global cause of our culture, our identity, our values, our norms, our tradition, our history, and our beautiful languages. The glorious things that our forefathers built with blood, sweat, and tears. We're trying damn hard to fight this cause with you people in the Northern Hemisphere. And really, we can only do it if people kindly and compassionately donate to us, and the money is put to very, very good use. So please, if people do have a heart for it, we are grateful for every single cent of support that we receive.
Yeah. Tell us about your speech to the European Parliament. How big of an audience did you have?
Brian, I think it was, Brian, I could be bulldusting you, but I think it was 108 people. It was initially anticipated to be 20, 30, something like that, and they had to move the venue because there was more interest than they anticipated. Then they had to move the venue a second time, and yeah, it ended up being a nice audience, very well received. I was most blessed, and I can tell you that that was facilitated through the European Conservatives and Reformists bloc. Wonderful people, wonderful, decent, respectable people of our culture, people of our, of our civilization, elegant people, impeccably mannered people, wonderful, 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 decent European people.
Is there a video of that talk? Do you have a video of that? Is there a video of that talk somewhere on YouTube?
There is a video. I couldn't tell you where it is because I never watch anything that I'm ever involved in, Brian. It's just my habit.
Yeah, people could probably Google it and find it. Yeah, they can look it up.
Oh, yes, people will find it very easily. Simon Roche, Saitlanders at the European Parliament, something like that. They'll find it very easily.
Great. Well, great to have you on the show again, Simon. Thank you so much. And hang in there.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you for your compassionate willingness to have us on.
Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for future videos, and please donate to keep these videos coming.